Time to see what's in the papers this morning with showbiz reporter Stephanie Tayki and broadcaster Andrew Eborn. Good to see you both this morning.
Good morning.
Can we have a look at Jermaine Jenas? Seen a lot of the papers this morning, but obviously let's be a little bit legally careful.
I'll tell you what, I don't like this at all, and I'll tell you why. I think the BBC have overreacted. They got into trouble about various other cases, all the way back to Savile and so on and so forth. Did they act quickly enough? This, at the moment, is just an accusation. All the details haven't come out. It's a claim. He was on television last night, I think, on Talk,
right,
basically saying there are two sides to every story. So he's denying it. But everybody's rushed to put it all... Well, no, he said there are two sides to every story, which means that the claim hasn't gone all the way through, though there's context. And as we've learned so quickly in all of these things, we talk about Manchester and so on and so forth, that you drip feed. And trust in the media is at an all-time low. And I say that trust comes in on foot, but leaves on horseback.
It's the issue, but the issue here is we're speculating, but if a complaint has been made and presumably some bosses somewhere at the BBC, it's meant to be about text messages, will have seen the said text messages. If they've said this isn't acceptable.
Yes, but then it's not a complaint. So you're absolutely right. There needs to be I always say that sunlight is the best disinfectant. What the BBC needs to do is to turn around and say, this is our procedure when we have complaints. I interviewed Greg Dyke for the Royal Television Society, and we talked about, we celebrated 100 years of the BBC, but talked about the next 100 and how they're going to survive. And we looked at trust in broadcasters around the world. It is at an all-time low. It's about 30, I was looking at Statista, 36% of people, only 36% of people trust the media in the UK. Now, there's a problem, and part of that problem is the BBC. And if you look at that sort of stuff, and you have cases like Savile, you have cases, as you say, with Hugh and so on and so forth, the recent cases, where the BBC apparently didn't act quickly enough. I think they've gone to the other extreme here, is if it is just a claim, then it's too early just to spread all over the papers and so on and so forth.
Well, what's happened in this kind of situation, as it usually does, is that once one complaint has come, more people have come forward, and this is what's happened in this situation with Jermaine, unfortunately. And the BBC, we cannot deny, is a scandal-riddled organisation at the moment. So when they are getting these complaints, they have to act fast. And unfortunately, I just think they just need to be clearer with their talent. What is the code of conduct that is expected from you as a presenter? You cannot do this and you cannot do that. And it feels like clearly the lines have been blurred here for a lot of its talent. And it's just unfortunate for Jermaine that his career now is effectively cancelled.
Yeah, he was going to do Match of the Day. He was being groomed as the replacement for Gary.
I mean, the thing is, I guess it's stuff you can do. It's that line, isn't it, between stuff you can do as a private citizen. You can text who you like and say what you like, in effect. If they don't like it, well, it's up to you to sort it out. If you're on telly, in a position of power...
that's exactly it. And he's a married man. It's like, that's the thing. If you're married as well, there must be some kind of line where you know that you're crossing the boundary into flirting with someone. For this woman to make an accusation, clearly he did cross the line.
And I guess the timing of this is all significant as well, isn't it, Stephanie? We're in a post-Hugh Edwards era. And I was reading in the papers this morning, BBC source saying that there's a new director of sport. And he wants to make it really clear that there'll be no skeletons in anyone's closet.
And I think that's right, but I think what's sad is when it becomes the witch hunt that it does, where, you know, you have someone who's a much-loved figure, then overnight they turned into this hate figure and they're splattered across every single newspaper in the country, and then there's this whole big, you know, investigating into their private life. I think that's when it goes a bit too extreme until we've had the full facts of what's happened.
And you're right. It has to be full facts here, doesn't it? Because there's nothing worse than an innocent person, I'm not saying he's innocent, an innocent person basically being vilified in the press, because it never disappears.
No, it never disappears. Stephanie, can we have a look at... we'll talk about private lives. Bennifer.
Yeah, they're no longer second time round. I think, you know, for a few months now, we've been speculating that their marriage has been over, but Jennifer officially filed for divorce on Tuesday, which was quite significant because it was their second wedding anniversary. But
that means they were only sort of happily married for 12, 18 months?
Yeah. Well, you know, there is a lot of factors here. J-Lo likes being in the limelight. She's very much a showbiz girl. She loves the celebrity circuit, where Ben is quite in a different place in his career now, where he doesn't like to be in the limelight. He's a recovering alcoholic. So behind the scenes, I can imagine there was a lot of tension brewing between them. They've actually, on the files that have come out, they were actually split from April. So they've been apart since April. So I think J-Lo was just kind of, you know, wants to make it official. But the thing now with most Hollywood breakups is what happens when there's no prenup involved. You know, she's worth $400 million, he's worth 150. So any of the projects that they've worked over the past 2 years now is basically up for them to sort out their finances.
But and she's been busy, hasn't she?
Yes, she has been. A lot of projects, 4 different projects. So it'll be interesting to see if there will be a battle.
It's really sad, though, isn't it? Any breakup's really sad. When you have to do it in the public eye is absolutely important for both of them. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors. We don't know whether they're ever happily married.
But in terms of the money...
Yes.
This is what I don't understand with people like that, is why should there be this big fuss over the money?
Yeah.
But if he's got $150 million...
I'll tell you why.
Why does he care?
So all my lawyer friends will tell you that the biggest thing, it's very easy, divorce laws is very straightforward. What happens is people, when they want to get revenge, so what they do, they start writing all these horrible letters, and it's all about that. It's nothing to do with the money, it's about revenge. And there's a classic cartoon which depicts lawyers, which has a cow with the word litigation written on it, and they have the defendant pulling the horns of the cow and the plaintiff pulling the tail, but the lawyers are milking it, because they are the only ones making all the money, and that's what happens. Where there's a hit, there's a writ, but also where there's grief, it works on the same principle.
It's so sad, isn't it? It really is. Both of you, can we have a look at the Bayesian super yacht? And this is in the Telegraph today, saying the crew could have avoided the crash.
I've got a theory on this. It's fairly horrendous. The manufacturer of the yacht has come out and say it would have taken 16 minutes in the normal situation. It went down very, very quickly. He's saying they didn't follow precautions and so on and so forth. Just to put it in perspective, and I was trying to just to combine the two stories, Mick Lynch has just been a co-defendant in a crime over there. His co-defendant was killed in a car accident. Conspiracy theories, there's a lot of questions to be answered. We should look further.
Yeah, well, yes, but he was killed in a car crash, and the woman involved in that it wasn't a hit and run or anything, was it?
I've no idea.
Yeah, she stayed there and was... Yeah. So it...
Co-defendants.
Conspiracy theories, though, it's...
Question everything.
Yeah. And I guess with this weather, it was so extreme. We're talking about a water spout. I mean, you couldn't make that happen.
Right, anyway. Stephanie, Andrew, thank you both very much indeed. Good to see you.
Let's have a look at the weather now with Annie.
Stephanie Tayki and Andrew Eborn are taking us through the papers this morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Steph, let's start with you, shall we? We talked about the GCSE results yesterday.
Yeah, I did. Oh, my gosh, I was holding my breath for so many youngsters that I know that were just scared to get their GCSE results. And there was this big concern on whether, you know, students were able to get back to the pre-pandemic levels, because during the pandemic, a lot of them suffered when they were studying for their exams. But now the results have seen that there's been a pass rate of 70.4%. So they no longer do A to C's, they do numbers. So they
very confusing stuff.
Come on, just
9, isn't it?
It's really weird. 6 at A, B and C. But most people received a C grade, which is quite good, and they have gone back to pre-pandemic levels. So I think it's good. I think it's like a new frontier for students now. I think, you know, before there was this concern whether they would be able to catch up again due to the pandemic, but clearly we've got a smart bunch of youngsters.
They're very clever, aren't they?
Yeah.
What I love, there's a Matt cartoon. I always love the Matt cartoon in the Telegraph. And there's a chap who's delighted. He says, "My son's failed his GCSEs. He's leaving school, so I won't have to pay VAT on school fees." There you go. So brilliant stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. But it was horrendous waiting for results. I don't know what you like, but when they used to have the old envelope coming through, obviously it was electric, and I used to get my envelope, a brown envelope with my handwriting, because, you know, those are the results. I would run to the top of the house and so nobody would see it. It's a horrendous moment.
I had to pick mine up at school and things.
I had to pick up at school, And
we were talking yesterday, the students that were opening them live on air. It's so brave. I would be in the car, I wouldn't even let my mum talk to me. I'd be like, you stand outside, I'll open them here. I'd usually...
Yeah, I think that was... I think it's a very bad idea. I think if anyone from a TV station ever asks you or your children to do that, say no.
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 Nerve-wracking.
It is very nerve-wracking, but I do feel sorry for the youngsters who didn't pass and they think, oh my gosh, their life is over.
Because it isn't.
It isn't, because I remember at the time when I got my results, I'd done okay, but I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to be a successful woman in the future.
And look at you
and now. Look at me now.
You're not as successful, glamorous, on telly, in the papers, everywhere.
Stop it.
It's true.
Stop it, Stephen.
And lovely as well.
Andrew, can we look at the Mail? Old-fashioned tech.
Yes, glorious story. So apparently, if you've got some of these in your home is old-fashioned. So they're talking about anybody with a landline or a wood chip wallpaper or single glazing or avocado toilets. All of these.
That was
avocado toilet.
Yeah,
yeah,
avocado
when
colours.
your bathroom suite was avocado.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you don't have one.
Green colour, yeah.
I used to have on the toilet rolls. They used to have
the
this little knitted lady. Nostalgia ain't what it used to be, I know. But this is apparently, so this is, they're shaming people with this old stuff. That's an old-fashioned thing. Whereas opposed to a modern must-have, they talk about open-plan living spaces, solar panels,
I don't
air
like
purifiers.
open-plan.
No, I don't. You want a bit of privacy, don't you?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it.
I quite like the lounge feeling snug.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can shut the door and light the candles.
Yeah,
it's all
I like that
cosy.
as well.
And it's been proved by psychiatrists and various others that you need a little space that you can be in. People like to be in a little cave, and you can do that. So open plan is quite stressing for people.
What else is
What else is on the list? So old tech, thing like frosted glass, a fish pond. So what's going to happen to all the poor old fish? So you work on that sort of basis. A shabby, chic furniture, shag pile carpets, cottage-style kitchen units, wood art, and also those letters. Remember the art where you say love and hope and that sort of stuff? That's out. It's out of date now.
I don't love those.
You don't love those?
Why do you think a bit
It's all air conditioning.
I don't love them.
I'll tell you what scares me slightly, if I'm seeing that right, is old tech includes a DVD player.
Oh, I know.
Stop it.
And a cassette player. I remember...
I mean, I just think these all seem new to me.
You can, go for it.
Yeah.
I remember the very first time the Sony Walkman came out, which is when people used to have a cassette, those little things you did with the pencil, and you put that in, and it was, like, amazing.
Yeah.
And I was saying, look, in the future, you're going to be able to get thousands upon thousands on a little chip this size, and people just wouldn't believe it. It is incredible.
I love vintage items. I think if it's not broke, you don't need to throw it out, because I find that most of the old products that were manufactured in the 80s and the 90s, they're quite sturdy. Obviously, they take up a lot of space in the home, but I still think they're of good value.
And people it's like vinyl records, which suddenly made a massive comeback. And if you get one of those old gramophones you used to wind up and that his master's voice, absolutely glorious.
Something that's a bit savage here, saying if you've got cream or white painted walls, which would be my entire house, you are old-fashioned and outdated.
No, I like a white wall.
We like a white wall.
It's a classic.
A neutral, yeah. And
also lace tablecloths.
Yes.
I've got a lace tablecloth.
I've got a lot of lace tablecloths
and
at
wooden
home.
decking in the garden. I think that looks quite good.
You always have to ask yourself the question, who are doing these things?
That's
and it's
what I
normally
have
the
to
companies
say.
wanting to promote their newfangled thing. So stick with your stuff, don't be shamed into getting rid of it.
Yeah.
I think it makes a house full of character when it's got...
Do you know what? That is actually so true. It's from an air conditioning specialist. I won't name them.
Oh, there you go, see?
And the #1 modern must-have...
Air conditioning.
Open your windows.
And an air purifier as well.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yes, a diffuser, I think they call that funny little thing as well now, don't they? Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, you two.
Thank you. It's a
Let's have a look at the
pleasure.
weather now with Annie.
Stephanie Tayki and Andrew Eborn taking us through the papers this morning. Stephanie, let's have a look at the Mail, should we?
Yeah.
Where a burglar...
Yeah.
Oh, he got the wrong target.
He did. Yeah. It's always that dreaded thought. You think to yourself, what would you do if, you know, you actually found a burglar in your house? Most people, I would dread to think what I would do, probably scream. But this burglar picked on the wrong house because he tried to steal stuff from a pensioner, a 74-year-old man, who actually bravely fought back and hit the thief over the head with a bottle.
Yes.
And he was actually, he had to go to hospital for his injuries, and he's now been charged and locked up, and rightly so. But I think it's so bad that people can think, they can target pensioners just because
terrible.
you think they're going to be defenceless. And this 74-year-old man has just fought back and he just haven't had it. And actually, the law states that homeowners can use reasonable force. But it takes me back to that story a few years ago of Tony Martin, who actually shot the burglar and then he ended up in prison, right?
Yeah, because he shot him as he was in the back, so the implication was he was running away, therefore he had no right to... But this, I mean, this is... You can imagine this fellow potentially being threatened or interviewed by the police.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I have every sympathy for him.
Oh, it was absolutely awful, because actually what happened, this guy here is Seamus Doyle was his name. He was given, 2 years and 174 days, funny sort of thing. But what happened, he attacked him, but he then came back with a brick. To basically clobber this pensioner, and ended up throwing it through the thing. The police got a hold of him. They asked him how he got the injuries. He basically said that he'd been in a fight in a park. But there was footage everywhere, his blood and so on and so forth. So we love it when pensioners fight back. We love it. It's a horrendous story, and good for him. But stay within the law.
Yes, that's the main thing.
You've got to try your best. But, I mean, it's... Honestly, I just think burglars, it's an insidious crime.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's an awful feeling to know that someone's been watching your house and they're just waiting for the right moment to target and break in.
Been inside your home.
It's that massive invasion of privacy, isn't it? Because it's not just the items you've lost. It's an absolute sort of vilification. It's awful.
Through your house.
That.
I think a lot of people would support that man, actually.
Well, good on him.
Anyway.
Good on you, sir.
Andrew, let's have a look at the sun, shall we?
Yes.
And the king has saved some chickens.
Oh, isn't that lovely? You know, Chucky saved some clucky chickens. I love it. 31 chickens have been rescued by the king. And what this basically is, they were... it's glorious. You wonder why 31, extraordinary number. But apparently he's done it a few times. And this is what they do. They've got the British Hen, basically the Wafers Trust is what it's called. And they've rescued about 1 million chickens in total.
From what?
Well, from being on a chicken farm. It's extraordinary.
Being eaten.
Well, exactly. They don't go after these, whatever initials you want to use for this particular chicken. So this is it. So Charles is obviously, as you know, he likes to look after things in a wonderful way and sort of caring sort of stuff. So this is it's a nice headline in this sort of diseased information age. It's quite nice to know about 31 lucky Chucky chickens saved by Chuck.
It sorts out his Sunday roast for the next 30
Stephen.
I think you're right. Let's go round. We'll have the
He loves his animals.
He does.
He eats
It's
them,
delicious.
Delicious. He is a vegetarian, isn't he?
Yeah, but
He loves it, particularly that wonderful salt you've got, or whatever it's called. That would work, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the whole salt, a whole chip salt. Now, can we talk about rocks?
Oh, yeah.
Because this one, I
best
mean,
kind of rock.
We love it.
it's this massive diamond.
Diamonds are a girl's best friend, and I want that
second largest diamond ever found.
Unearthed in Botswana. It's a 2,493 carat diamond. It's the second largest gem which has been unearthed in this century. It was found by Lucara Diamond, which is a Canadian mining business, and they've said that basically they haven't put a value at it, but the Financial Times are saying it could be worth £30.6 million.
Wow.
But I always find it quite fascinating. Obviously, my heritage is Ghanaian, and in Africa, you'll be surprised how many mines there are, and just the amount of people are there looking for diamonds. And I do hope that sometimes they do reinvest back into these countries, because you know they find so many of these diamonds, and they just take it back to the West, and there's nothing really left for the countries where they're actually found.
Yeah. Some of the trade has been pretty awful, hasn't it? I mean, diamonds are girl's best friend. A man's best friend is a dog. How does that work? The biggest diamond, do you remember what that was?
Well, that's the crown jewels.
It is 3,106 carats. It was Cullen in South Africa in 1905, and when it was still part of the British colony, and it was gifted to King Edward VII. So that's the biggest one, significantly larger, 3,106.
Wow! Imagine falling across that.
Oh, I would love that.
Why would you gift it to anybody?
Well, I'm sure the gifting came with a bit of persuasion.
Wow.
And you can cut it into pieces as well.
Yeah, they did.
that's
That's what we did, yeah.
Imagine how many nice rings you can make.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, there we go.
That's always the thing, I think, because by the time that's cut, it'll obviously be a significantly smaller, but still a whopper.
I kind of want to just, oh, God, can you imagine?
I'd wear it on my head.
Yeah, wow. It's
a crown. Crown, Queen Ellie.
That would be nice.
It's a whopper. Thank you, you two. Really good to see you this morning.
Let's have a look at the weather now with Annie.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.